Welcome, everybody, to the Digital Nomad Experts podcast by Commute. Today, we're going to talk to you about the 7 questions about digital nomad life and remote work. So we've kind of scouted around the web, looked through forums, the old email bag, and pulled out some of the more unique questions that we've seen. And I'm pretty sure that none of these questions, Marissa, we've answered in any podcast
I don't think so.
before.
Yeah, they're fun and different.
Yeah, they're very fun and different. It's not to be confused with the future episode. We said we're going to do funniest questions that we can find about digital nomad life and remote work. So if you have any of those, just goofy, off-the-wall types of stuff, send that in because we want to have a fun episode. We're just kind of laughing at goofy stuff. So we'll do a little searching around, but we'd love to hear from you. But yeah, with that, should we go rapid style back and forth, or how do you want to do it?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's switch off questions and we'll jump right in. And I am coming at you from Costa Rica today. I am back there, hit the ground running with some travels this year. So we are living it, 2025. I feel like it still feels like new year, new start. It's exciting. So we hope that this is your year for digital nomad life. It's your year to get a remote job, and we've got some really fun resources coming for you. And in the meantime, these questions should help you get there. So number 1, the first question was, do you think remote companies should start monitoring employees more closely to ensure they're actually working, or is that just Big Brother vibes? I'm glad you're getting this one, Jeff, because I feel like you've got strong opinions.
I follow different threads on Reddit, and if you've got the app, it'll just, whatever you've been reading recently, it'll send you updates along that thread. And one of them was remote work and hiring and all that kind of stuff. And somebody posted something the other day about how they were using like activity tracking software on their company computer. So they are working remote, but this software is insanely invasive. Like it's got a camera on, right? So it's seeing whether or not you're at your desk, and it's tracking.
I hate this
activity. The things that I hate everything about it
so much.
It's awful. It's so awful. I mean, everything about it is terrible. It's taking the micromanagement of a middle office manager and cranking it up to like 1,000 and adding like AI to it. It's already a bad thing, and you made it twice, 3 times, 4 times a bad thing. And
it feels like someone's hovering, like if you were to be in an office, imagine your manager just like hovering over you every second, or even just like someone there watching, like noting, like, are you working, or are you talking to someone else? Are you browsing something else? It just feels like, get off my back. I don't know. I don't like it.
It's treating you like a child instead of a professional. They entrust you with a salary, which a lot of knowledge workers are making in the high 5 digits a year, some in the 6 digits a year. They're entrusting you with that much money, but not enough trust to do your job. Like, they're going to give you all this money, and you've got a specialized skill set, usually knowledge workers, but not going to trust that you're going to work.
Yeah.
And they're going to treat you like a child. And that just immediately, somebody does that to you, it erodes, it creates so much bad will with your company, because I don't want to work for anybody that doesn't trust me.
And it's also creepy to have a camera on. There's something that feels like so invasive. I'm like, am I going to forget and leave it on? And it's going to be weird. I remember there was a remote company we saw that looked like it was a great remote company. It said all the right things, that you can work from anywhere. And they were paying writers to write, I think it was a couple of years ago, kind of blog posts and like SEO style writing. But they would monitor, like when you were writing, you had to have that camera on. It could monitor like how many words per minute you're writing and things like that. And it just goes, I feel like, Jeff, you and I have talked a lot about this. It just shows the shift that I think should be made of, like, what if somebody's sitting there at their computer and they're working 8 hours a day in front of it and it looks like they're working, versus someone who finishes their job in 20 minutes and doesn't work for, the next 7 hours and 40 minutes. Like, does it matter? I just feel so strongly about paying people for the value that they're doing for most every job. If something's variable and you're tracking like, oh, are you, you might work 1 hour this week and 8 hours next week based on what you're doing. Sure, there's situations that can be hourly, but overall, if you're paying like a salaried worker, we should trust them to do their job. And you can tell, like, are you getting the value as an employer, right? Like, so I just hate anything that limits, that watches, that micromanages it. I'm like, I want to abolish it forever, but it still exists for sure.
It's mind-boggling to me that the amount of technological progress we've made and how far along we are into knowledge work, working from offices, right? And a small fraction of the companies that I've seen actually measure output KPIs versus attendance. Time. They can still value time. That is mind-blowing to me. Time does not generate revenue for a company. Output generates, and quality does. Somebody messaged me the other day. They were asking, hey, can you do some SEO work for me? I was like, no. But anyway, like he said, well, you know, theoretically, how would this work? And he says, like, how many hours a month would you get? I said, well, that's a terrible question. That's already it's already a red flag, because my management team would want to know how many hours per month. I said, well, that makes zero sense, because you're not going to get any value from hours. You're going to get value from value, no matter what it takes. I said, it's going to be the amount of hours it takes to do the job. Yeah, but they want to know how many hours. I said, well, if I work extremely slow, what about then? If I work extremely fast, what about then? Are you going to penalize yourself because you're an efficient worker?
Yeah.
Are the people that are really inefficient going to get paid a lot more? Yeah. It doesn't make any sense. And it really doesn't make any sense in the context of most of the people that we're talking to who are in the knowledge work space. It's not a repetitive task. I think if you go back in time to repetitive tasks, you kind of quantify things in hours, because you roughly know how much you still should be looking at productivity, but you can kind of get an idea how much productivity if you're doing the same thing over and over again, just like, I don't know, data input or something like that. But most of the things that we're doing is kind of deeper work, and it takes a creative aspect. It takes a lot of analyzing, which goes on and off in your brain. Your brain doesn't work at peak analyzing for a given amount of time. You have to go on and off.
Yeah.
And so it makes no sense to measure any of these things. If we're off the production floor in a car manufacturing plant, it makes no sense to measure anything in hour output.
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous question.
The last tiny little thing I say, I feel like this will infuriate you, Jeff. I was talking to someone recently who's a lawyer, and they said that their office was just reinstating that they were tracking, you have to like tap your card to get into the office and tap it when you leave, so it tracks the hours that you are in the office. And it just, again, I'm like, why? What are we doing? If someone's there 6 hours versus 8 hours versus 12 hours, does it matter if people are still just so in that attendance mindset, and it's so unnecessary. Like, we want you, well, I was gonna say, if you're listening, we want you to be free, roaming the world, doing good, valuable work in the time takes you to get done, and that's what you should be doing. But what were you gonna say?
Have you heard of coffee badging?
No.
New term
I've never heard that.
Coffee badging is when companies require a certain amount of time in the office of their employees, and somebody goes in and they tag in, grab a coffee, and then tag out and go home and work from home. You said that
they're also tagging out.
Yeah, well, you get a buddy to tag you out. You leave your card with them, and they'll tag you out. And then you do the same thing for them next time.
Keep switching off.
So nobody has to spend that much time in the office.
It's so crazy. All right, well.
Oh, yeah. It's an arms. We will figure out ways to not be in that fucking office.
Get away from the office. Get away from the micromanagers. Yeah. That's the moral of the story. I think the moral of the story for this one is like, no, they should not monitor more. Yes, they are. Some are monitoring more. And our takeaway from this is you don't have to. We have a lot of companies in our Anywhere Atlas. Check out beachcommute.com/atlas that are not requiring you to be in the office, that lets you work from anywhere. And that's what we're here to help you do. So with that, what's question number 2?
Question number 2, is it really sustainable to hop countries every month?
Ooh, this is a good one. I would say absolutely yes, with the caveat of you might get tired after a while. If you're hopping a different country every single month, every year, for years on end, you're going to probably burn out. I could say in the beginning of my nomad life, I was pretty much going to a different country every single month, but I would take little breaks in between. I would kind of go for 3, 4, or 5 months, and then I might go back home for the holidays, and I'd go for another 4 months and come back home for a friend's wedding and stay 2 months or something. And then I did that for probably 3 years or so, 3, 4 years maybe even, but started to slow down. And now for Jeff and I both, we talked about this in our last episode that we did, the last episode of 2024, our kind of year-end review of why we've both been slowing down. And we've seen just in general, like as a trend, a lot of our digital nomad friends who started back in 2016, 2017, 2018, when we did, are really starting to slow down, just because it does wear on you after a while. It takes a lot of added energy to move around that often, but it's definitely sustainable for a while. However, you might want to slow down find somewhere to stay for 2 months every now and then, maybe every now and then stay for 3 months or go back home and rest. But you can do it. You can do it for a little while and then maybe slow down some or take breaks in between. What's your thought?
When I first saw this question, I saw it two ways, like sustainable to yourself, but then we also had global sustainability things. I also saw it that way.
Oh,
I don't
interesting.
think that's actually the way it was intended. Yeah, so from a personal perspective, yeah, I could 1 month's probably as short as I would go at this point, just because I do get burned out, especially now, and I don't have that drive to see everything all at once anymore. Like it's not going anywhere. I got time. I don't have to rush anymore, and I like getting into a routine in a new place. I know where the coffee shop is and where the running routes are, and it kind of takes, like we talked about in the past, it kind of takes that amount of time to get to know the cool spots that are off the beaten path just by living there and stumbling on it and interacting with some of the locals. So yeah, I'm pro take at least a month for sure. It's very doable. Once you start getting into 2 weeks, 1 week, some places,
you'll exhaust yourself.
I mean, you will, and financially, it kind of doesn't make sense either. Everything's way more expensive when you're traveling that much.
True. Yeah, you can get discounts
you're never
to stay
shop,
for a month long.
Discounts. Yeah, exactly.
You don't know the best price place.
And you're not going to go
restaurants.
shopping.
Yeah, for food,
you're
grocery
go
shopping,
eating out for food. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm team slow matting.
I was definitely team. We don't have a word for like fast matting. There's not an equivalent of slow matting, and is it just nomading? Fast matting? I don't know. We don't have a word for it, but
speed matting.
Speed matting. I like that. That'll be your new one. I was team speed matting for a while, and even in between those months, sometimes if I was close, there were some little countries I would go visit places for like 5 days, 3 days, a week, and then land in my next place for a month. So I would say like if you're new and you've got a lot of energy and you're ready to go, like you can hit it, but eventually you'll want to slow down some, and it's more sustainable when you just move a little slower because you just don't burn out. And
agreed.
That's that. Okay. Number 3, someone asked if I have 0 tech skills, am I delusional for thinking I could land a remote job? What's your thought?
I've got an answer that I think is probably going to be different than
Really?
yours. I think you're going to say you're not delusional. I think you're going to say you're not delusional. I think you are. I'm going to say that you are a little bit delusional.
Tell me why.
Because I think as a digital nomad, it's in the name, digital, you don't need to be a tech savant, but you need to know your way around most modern tools. I mean, you have to know how to use Google products. You have to figure out some spreadsheets. You definitely have to know email. You're gonna have to know Word documents, presentation, Google Slides, that kind of stuff. It's a PowerPoint. I think there's probably a minimum threshold, and at least maybe some website development skills somewhere in there, some writing skills. So I think you probably can't start at 0. I feel like you're probably going to school me as the career coach because you know a lot more about this than I do. So just off a hunch, I feel like is as implied by the name digital nomad, you should at least learn some digital stuff that'll get you by at least.
Yeah, I actually don't disagree with you. I think when someone says, like 0 tech skills, like you said, you need to, if you're not willing to use Zoom and Slack and some of just the techie things to communicate with other people on your team or publish something or write something or share something, it's going to be tricky for you. I know we had someone write to us recently who we're going to interview soon, and she worked in a very physical, like hands-on nursing job and wanted to work remotely, and she learned new tech skills and released her old job. And I'm so excited to share this story with you because I think it's a great example of someone who said, like, I want to travel. I'm going to learn a new skill to do it. So I think there's some very hands-on jobs that people are doing that you don't have to be like a software developer. Like Jeff and I are not software developers. You don't have to be so... There are other things other than like incredibly tech savvy jobs. Like there's some middle grounds where it's just you need to know enough, and then the skills that you would be using in an office job kind of come anyway. But it is, I would say, it's like you have to be tech like able, I would say, but not. Yeah. I do think sometimes when people ask this question, they think like only developers and only someone who's like writing code or working with AI. Like there are other roles, like there are accountants and copywriters and marketing, advertising. There's all sorts of, graphic designers, maybe less so now with some AI tools, but there are a lot of roles that are not inherently tech related. But as Jeff said, like, you need to be able to do these things from a computer in order to make it happen. Like, you can't be a hands-on chiropractor, and live as a digital nomad traveling everywhere. You could teach chiropractic online, you could start a course, but it's like you have to learn some tech skills to do that. So it's somewhere in the middle.
Yeah. And it doesn't require a ton of savvy. I mean, if you're able to get around the Google products, you're probably going to be okay. I mean, if you're just getting started in a digital type of job, you're going to be at somewhat of an entry-level position, just navigating through Google Slides, Google Sheets, email, might get you into like some social, maybe some marketing stuff, maybe some website development stuff. I mean, it's not that hard. They built these products so easy to use at this point. So while I say you do need some tech skills, it's not anything that you would want to be intimidated by, because all the stuff out there right now that you'd have to use is pretty easy to just pick up.
Yeah.
I mean, they've made it real user friendly at this point.
So I like to think of like these jobs as you need to be able to do what you can do from a computer in some way, but you don't have to be like a tech genius by any stretch of the imagination. You can get creative on careers, maybe you're like a singer or voiceover artist and you bring a microphone like Jeff and I are using for this podcast, and you need to learn how to work that, but then you can do all sorts of creative things. So yeah, we have some, I feel like there's some podcasts way back that were like, what was it? I think we did a 2-part episode of some of the strangest digital nomad jobs we've seen. Maybe we can try to find the number of that. It was way back, but listen to that for inspiration if you're thinking of this. You're like, I don't know what kind of techie job I could do. Like, people are, I don't know, doing all sorts of things that are not so techie.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, next question for you.
Okay.
Do you think digital nomads are ruining certain destinations by driving up prices and taking over local culture?
This is an interesting question. I think it's a tricky one, because I think the answer is yes. So I do think, one, nomads are definitely driving up prices of certain locations. The one that comes to mind, Playa del Carmen, Tulum, Cape Town, Bali. Where am I forgetting? Medellin in Colombia,
Mexico City.
I feel like it's like a lot of Mexico, Colombia. Thailand isn't driven up that much, but still some Thailand, Indonesia. I feel like those were some of like the OG nomad locations. Probably Portugal. I don't know, those and Cape Town in South Africa. Those are the biggest ones that come to my mind right now. But there are certainly, it's not limited just to those. So anyway, I would say with those, there's a lot of towns and cities specifically where a lot of nomads flock to and just drive up the housing pricing. I wouldn't say there's like little bubbles that the food prices are driven up. Puerto Escondido, another one. There's a lot of little Mexico towns. But yes, I think a lot of nomads come in, and then people who own the properties there are like, wow, we can charge much higher prices to these people. So they start charging higher prices, which are still lower than you might pay in your home city or country. But it's way higher than a local person who was living in that place might pay otherwise. And then those people are often pushed out of their home towns and cities or neighborhoods and forced to live in other places that they can then afford. So that is absolutely happening. And then the other place, and taking over the local culture, I'd say maybe like, I think about Bali, especially for that one. There's these little pockets of very nomad, expat, sort of globalization of these communities where it just feels very westernized in an otherwise not westernized town or city. And it's strange because you think about Bali, like, it hasn't changed the entire island. There are lots of still local pockets and local traditions and people and, food and customs. But there's little pockets where you're like, I don't even like this. I'm seeing Bali with my eyes, but like these people have taken over. So it's definitely happening. I think we've had some conversations on this podcast. It's like, do you stop traveling? Should we not be nomads? Should we not go live in these places? And it's really tricky. I think there's probably some people who would argue, yes, nomads, like, stop traveling. You're ruining these local places. But I think it's also in a way kind of part of life. This happens in every country within its own people, people gentrification happens and people move to certain cities and the prices go up and people have lived there for 20 years before it became a big city now can't afford their homes. And it's tricky. I do hate that it happens. And it also seems like it happens in all places, whether it's by nomads or just local people in a country. So the one thing I do think we have going for us is the popularization or the access to Wi-Fi that is now it's in more places. So before, I think people flocked to Indonesia and Thailand and Colombia and Mexico because those 4 countries had a low cost of living and high-speed Wi-Fi and felt safe enough for people to live. Now with Wi-Fi more accessible, you can kind of go anywhere in any country and almost always have access to Wi-Fi. So I think what we saw as people kind of clustering in these places can now spread out again. And I hope that will result in the countries being happy to get tourism money. I know a lot of countries do rely on, tourists and digital nomads to survive and run their economy, but not push people out of these very concentrated neighborhoods and locations. So I don't know. Did I answer that well? What are your thoughts, Jeff?
I think that was really well put. Yeah. And that was an interesting perspective that you had about this happens internally in countries too. And it's always happened.
Yeah.
People will always chase down more desirable locations. It used to be access to jobs. It's always been access to nice climate, nice terrain, agriculture, all that kind of stuff. So this is not new. This has always happened. It's just now a new question because we're on a global scale and everything is more accessible. People are able to travel and do these kind of things, whereas they weren't in the past. It was just tourism. They'd go, and there's problems with that, but people are leaving. They're coming and they're leaving, and they're not staying as long. And now digital nomads are staying longer, and they have access to further places, further and further away, and more remote. So it's felt, I think, a little bit more acutely because it's just so different. But it is kind of a continuation of what's happened forever and ever and ever. And it's not an excuse for it, but it does explain why this is happening and what do we learn from it. I think your solution is right. Diego said something about that in the past too. Like the answer is to kind of desaturate some of these areas that are super impacted. The historical hubs, Bali, Mexico City, Medellin, Cape Town. If you spread that out, there's only so many digital nomads in the world. If they spread out a little bit more evenly, and I think, like you mentioned, just basically reiterating what you said, with Wi-Fi and infrastructure capabilities all over the world just getting better and better and better, that's a possibility. Now, you can actually work from places where just a couple of years ago you couldn't work from. So hopefully that should take some of the pressure off some of these impacted areas. It won't fix it, but it should, as people start to distribute themselves a little bit more evenly, as opposed to everybody's only going to Cape Town this winter. It's like, oh, great. Well, that is going to be expensive for everybody, and it's going to create a problem.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, I do like your solution. I do like the way you analyze that. I really got nothing else to add to that. It's exactly how I feel.
And
I do
wonder, I don't know. I don't like to rely on governments for anything, but to have some rules put in place. And I give one example. I saw a video about Jamaica recently. I forget the exact percentage, but basically there's a lot of, and this isn't about digital nomads. There's actually very few digital nomads who go to Jamaica, but from a tourism standpoint, a lot of the giant hotels, resorts, developments, they buy the land that has great beaches and they put up walls so no locals can go and access the beach, through those walls, through the local roads that they've had access to for, decades as, growing up. It's been their life, their livelihood or enjoyment. And it was something, I can't remember if it was 98% of the beaches or 90% of the beaches in Jamaica, locals cannot access because they are blocked by these resorts. And so they're limited to 2 beaches or, a very small percentage of beaches on that island for that country. Versus in Costa Rica, where I am right now, the government has made it that beaches are 100% public. And if you buy land that, borders up to a beach, you have to offer public access through that land somewhere that locals can, or not anybody can travel through to get to the beach. You can't block it off. So even though there's developments going up, people still have access to the beach. That's just one example. So I think it's important that as these things are happening, that governments can kind of put some rules in place that still allow people, for nomads to not take over, or even tourism. And another example is in Bali, for you can't buy the land outright to build. You can only do like 25-year leases so that the land will go back to locals afterwards. So it's not like anyone foreign can come and buy the land and have it forever and take over and, kill what Bali used to be. So there's, in Thailand, for example, there's some workarounds, but it's hard to buy a property in Thailand outright. You kind of have to do it through a Thai company. So there's just ways that I think governments can help to counteract some of these things. It's not perfect, but and it's hard. I don't think they even knew to think about these things because digital nomads didn't exist that long ago. So it'll be interesting to watch.
Problem. I think Mexico is the same too. I don't think you can actually own any beach line in Mexico.
All the beaches are public.
Even if you've got property on the beach, you don't own the beach in front of your property. Yeah. I think you only own the land, or actually rather the structure.
Right.
And like whatever's fenced in front of the beach. And that's it. I think that's ultimately a good thing too.
For sure. So we'll see what happens, but it's a tricky one. So if you're listening, go explore some unique places where you get Wi-Fi. That's my advice. So if you are listening to this and you are not yet on our email list, check out beachcommute.com/email to join us there. We send out tons of remote jobs and different digital nomad tips. So if you are listening to this and you've been thinking about travel and you want to get that remote job so that you have the freedom to travel and not be micromanaged, like we talked about in the first question, definitely join our email list. We send a ton of helpful, again, listings and digital nomad tips. So check out beachcommute.com/email. And with that, we've got question number 5, and this one's coming to you, Jeff. And that is, what is your take on companies, you're going to love this one, offering unlimited vacation policies? Are they legit, or is it just a sneaky way to actually make you take less time off?
That's a tricky one because it sounds so good. If you're a job seeker and you see that, it sounds amazing. Unlimited PTO that sounds like a godsend, right? As much vacation as you want. I can't think of anything better. Well, there is an answer to this question, it turns out, because they've done studies on it, and people that have unlimited PTO typically take fewer days than people that have capped PTO. And I think, I can't remember, maybe you remember better than I do, but I think it's a social pressure that causes that, and guilt. I think there is some aspect of like, well, I can't take this many days off because this person didn't take that many days off.
People are afraid to use the days, that it's going to look bad, and there's not exact of like, what should you do? What is the norm?
Right. And it's like kind of a race to the bottom of who can take fewer days, because you still want to climb up in the corporate ladder, obviously. You still want to do well, and you have to look good to your peers. You have to look good to your seniors. And if you're taking more days than somebody else, that person might think that I'm not doing as well as some of the other people because I'm taking too many days. When in reality, if they were allotted those days anyways, if you're given 25 vacation days a year, you could take all those and nobody would say anything about it. Oh yeah, you got more vacation days left. Go ahead and take them. That's like a part of your salary, right? Well, this is not part of your salary. Vacation days, people forget that, are part of your salary. And if you leave with remaining vacation days, you get paid back those days. That doesn't exist anymore. So it's not part of your salary. Therefore, people don't really understand that these are earned days because they're honor system, but it's not an honor system.
Yeah, you feel sort of guilty. It's like, I've already taken 3 weeks. Should I take another 4? Yeah. I feel bad. It gets into a strange territory. I think, as Jeff said, there's studies that have been done about this, and people actually take less time off with unlimited vacation days than somebody would if given 3 weeks or 4 weeks or something like that.
Okay, so yeah, while you're saying that, people with unlimited PTO tend to take around 2 fewer days off per year compared to those with fixed amount of PTO.
That's not that much.
Shows that it's an average of 13 days a year, while those compared to people that take a fixed amount of 15 days per year, which is still embarrassingly low amount of vacation days. Like 13 versus 15. You had unlimited PTO and you took 13 days off. That's wild to me. I mean, a fixed amount, I think, should start at, and I'm going to get controversial here, but should start at least 20 days a year.
Yeah.
I would think. 1 month a year. Very, very bare minimum. And it took me, I started at 10.
I did too.
You started at
10 days.
Some of my
5
coworkers started at 8. 8
That's
PTO
insane.
days a year? A week, and then Monday through Wednesday? Fuck off. No way.
It's insane. It's insane. Yeah, I feel like all of our friends from Europe who we've met travelers, they're like, this is absurd. They all get a month off in the middle of summer just because everyone does, and they get more vacation days on top of that. So, it's absurd.
So I do have to talk about this a little bit more, because in the Anywhere Atlas we include that as a perk, because a lot of these companies that we include have that listed as one of the perks of working for the company, unlimited PTO. And I do still think it is a positive perk, and we score it accordingly. But I think people need a little bit of re-education about what that means and what's a healthy way to approach unlimited PTO, which I've got my thoughts on it. I think it should be, don't abuse it, obviously, but take a minimum of 20 days. Just that's yours.
Yeah.
They put that there and put them to the test. I mean, that you should be, like we talked about before, you should be judged on your outcomes rather than your attendance anyways. If you're fucking killing it, feel entitled to those days. They're yours.
Yeah. I like that. And I guess you kind of see what the norm is, what people are doing around you.
Well, that's not even a safe bet either, because like I said, they're racing to the bottom to try to show who's hustling harder, grind culture, and I don't think that's the... I think if you're outperforming,
take those days. You set the bar. That's our news. You set that bar. Exactly. You do well. All right. What's the next question?
Okay. Should I offer to take a lower salary in order to become more competitive and get the job over people if I'm going to work remotely from other countries?
Yeah, this is a cool question. So I know several people have asked me this in career coaching and some of the programs that we've done, where they're like, okay, if I'm interviewing and I'm in the mix and I'm competing against people who maybe aren't traveling and I'm getting this freedom too. The question that they asked me was, should I offer a lower salary? So let's say they're offering to pay $130K. Should I say, and they're racing for someone else who's equally competitive with me to get that job? I've had clients say, should I offer to do this job for, 110 or 115 or 120K? So that I am more competitive. I'm asking for less. They can pay me less, but they'll give me the freedom to travel, right? So I would say it seems like, I don't know, when someone asks that, it seems like it'd be like, yeah, go for it, right? If you're getting this freedom. And her argument to this was, I can go live in Thailand. I'll be living in these countries where it's a lower cost of living. So ultimately, I'm still making more as it seems, but I'm going to get this job over someone else. So my thought for this is no. I would say go in, be competitive. If they're going to give you that job anyway, if you're going to beat over that other person, you want to go in for the higher salary. And I think because this was coming from mentality of I need to take a salary cut, I need to take a pay cut if I'm going to get permission to travel the world while I work, I think it's an old way that people are thinking. So if you're listening to this and you're interviewing, negotiating, going in for a job, I would say go in with confidence and say, as Jeff's been saying a lot in this, here's the value I can offer. Here's the work I'm going to do. Here's how I'm going to add value to your company and be a great employee, help your team. And it's an added bonus that you're going to be traveling, but it doesn't matter. So I say in negotiations, go in as if you're just getting any job, office or not. And the fact that you can travel and save money is an added bonus. If somebody said to you straight up, we're going to give the other person this job unless you want to do this for less, okay, then consider it. But don't go into the negotiation, because they might offer, you might have gotten the job for the full asking price or the full salary, but then you offer to take less when they would have paid you more. So go in with confidence, take your salary, and know that the world is shifting and you can have a great salary, make all the money, and travel the world without having to take a pay or salary cut. That's my very strong opinion.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think you've probably got a better understanding of this negotiation with regards to getting hired anyway. So I think I wouldn't have anything decent to add to that.
Perfect.
Anything useful to add
well,
to that.
With this, then the last question, number 7, I feel like this is a perfect one for you, Jeff. It says, be real. Is remote work making us all lazier, or are we finally just enjoying life the way we're supposed to?
Okay, I think you know where I'm going to go.
I know
with
it.
this.
Go fly.
But I think it's both.
Okay.
A bit of a wild card. I think I am the biggest proponent of work from anywhere, work from home. I'm constantly talking about this shit all the time because I'm in huge support of it. I don't think it works for some people. I think it works for a lot of people, but for some people, I don't think it works. I think some people don't necessarily have the discipline to do it. I've seen it in person, and some people, yeah, I mean, they're already lazy people.
I was going to say, do you think that
they were lazy in the
I
office?
was going to ask that. Like, do you think they would
enabled.
be just as lazy in the office as you see them being on a beach in Brazil or Colombia or something?
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Maybe
like
they
giving
just
an alcoholic a drink.
exactly.
Like they're already gonna be that way, and now they're really, really enabled to be that way. And for some people, it's just difficult to motivate themselves when they're not leaving the house. Like they just can't get into a work mindset. They're more easily distracted, which I don't know how you wouldn't be in an office, because that's one of the most distracting places I've ever worked. But some people I haven't seen it work very well for. I would say the majority of people, yeah, I think it does work pretty well. And I think this lazy word comes up. I see it on LinkedIn quite a bit. Comes from this weird superiority complex. People that have this elitist, I go into an office, therefore I am a mover and shaker in the world. I am, I grind. It's just like this ego driven thing. And I want to read you this very short thread that somebody commented on with me. So somebody's talking about this ENT did a return to office mandate, and everybody returned to office because they had to. They didn't have parking spaces. They didn't have desks for them, and the elevators were overcrowded, and people couldn't get up there. They actually couldn't get up to the office that they didn't have because there's too many people in the elevators. So AT&T put up these motivational posters saying, use the stairs, it's good for your health. It's like, oh, fuck off. So this guy, I won't say his name, but damn, I should. It says, God, period, space. You people are not marching off to fight World War II in the streets. It's a desk job at a climate-controlled office, for Christ's sake. I said, I never said they existed for that reason. My point, as I mentioned, is that people were effectively doing their jobs from the location of their choosing, resulting in better lives. When a company takes away that without good reason, we have cause to raise concern. Do companies have the right to do this? Yes, but they will suffer the consequences. Top performers are the first to leave when companies implement RTO mandates. Times have changed, and we need to start measuring success and output versus attendance. He says, zero articulable reason. How about people working from home mostly suck? Oh, I'm so much more productive at home, in quotes, is true for maybe 15% of work from home people. The rest of you are in goblin mode with your cameras off doing laundry while the rest of us are working. And he says, another post, that wasn't enough. It says, Jeff Baker, you sound like somebody who should be fired.
Fired from your own company.
And
Jeff, I love that you're just in it. You're getting into these conversations. I was like, ignore, delete.
I mean, I want to have these conversations. I feel like there's a lot to be said, and there's a lot of rights or wrongs to be righted. And yeah, so I just said, wow, very professional take there, buddy. To keep this civil, the data shows people are just as productive at work, and they are not goblins. They are professional adults. I also own my own business and empower people to work from wherever they want and wherever they choose. And he says, wow, you must be a saint. That was his response. I'm like, all right, we're down here. I swear to God, this guy must be he must have a gun in his mouth right now. This guy must be the most miserable guy. We might have to cut that. Hussein, actually cut that. That's a beer drinking conversation. This guy must be absolutely miserable with his life and just trying to be angry with people as much as he possibly can.
You're giving in to the internet gremlins, so that's part of you as well. Those comments are there, but I do think it highlights, as you're saying, what people think of work from home workers, which is not to say that like we don't do laundry in the middle of the day or go to the gym, but you're not less productive than you would be in an office. And I know when I worked in an office, then I worked from home for that same company. I feel like I could get everything that I got done in an office in 3 hours per day, and I did have more time to work out, go to the gym, do whatever, but it wasn't because I was doing less. It was because I wasn't distracted by people in an office walking by me 7 hours a day, So anyway, it's an interesting one. So your take on it, like what's your overall take on that question?
No, I don't think it makes people lazy. I think it makes lazy people lazier.
That's fair.
I think for the most part, over the pandemic, there's probably a little bit of pain with the learning curve for some people to figure out, forced to work from home. They don't have a home office set up or whatever. I think people kind of figured it out over time, and there's just numerous studies out there that just show this is not true. People are not more productive in an office. Yeah, there are certain instances where it's okay, but most of these things that they're saying you need to get back from an office, the culture, the productivity, these can all be measured to prove it, but yet nobody wants to do that because it's not the reason why they're bringing back. So it's a lot of lies, but I don't know where this superiority complex comes from. I put on a suit. I'm a mover and shaker. I go into the office. We're getting business done. It's like this rah-rah macho like fraternity type of mindset. It's what the fuck is that? Why exactly are you better than me because you're getting away from your family and putting on a suit and getting on a commuter bus for an hour a day? Are you proud of that? I don't understand where this comes from, what this mentality is. And I'm trying to get an understanding of it because none of the data backs them up. So I don't know what their argument is that just think that they're better than other people because they leave the house. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's weird.
It's an interesting one. I like your take on it. I would say, like, when I read this question, which is remote work making us lazier? That's kind of part one. And the second part is, are we just enjoying life the way we're supposed to? I know, I love that you went like the suits, the superiority. I think that's a really important conversation to have. My interpretation of this question is a little bit different, and just thinking like, I think we're all, like, all of us listening to this podcast, hopefully all of you listening, I think that we're starting to enjoy life more of the way we're supposed to, even if people are working a little bit less. I think before, people were just going in an office pretending to work all those hours. Like, you're stuck at that desk because you have to. Or maybe also people were working like 10-hour day office jobs and working really hard and grinding. And my perspective, and like going through some health things and just living as a digital nomad, traveling more, starting our own work, caring so much about work-life balance and living life and having the freedom to explore the world while you're still young enough and healthy and physically able. And to me, I think I read this question and think about, like, maybe even if we are working a little bit less, or not pretending to work as much as we used to, and actually just admitting that, like, I'm going to do 4 solid hours of work today and give you my value and be done. And maybe even changing the structure of, instead of paying someone on a salaried pay, maybe you pay them to do, in contract work, to do a certain job that they get done in whatever hour, whether that's 1 hour or 10 hours a day, it's up to them. I think, and my hope, and at least for us personally, and what we promote here at Beach Commute is it, like, enjoying the life the way we're supposed to, like having leisure time, not having to like grind and hustle and get sick before you take days off and take hours off. So if it is, I think the word lazier is what I don't like here. I think remote work is giving us some freedom that we all deserve for being alive, and we are finally starting to enjoy life more of the way that we're supposed to because of this freedom, because of this shift. And certainly not everybody is there yet. I think that if you're listening to this, you're far ahead of the curve of knowing this is possible for you to travel while you work, or go visit family members who are sick and still get your job done, and work for offering value, not from hours that you're pretending to work at a desk or getting distracted by things and commuting 7 hours a week, So anyway, I take that as, like, I don't think we're lazier. I think we are shifting to a new environment that we are freer. That's what I will say. I think it's making us freer to enjoy life the way that we're supposed to, and that the hustle and grind culture still exists in many places. But I know from my days, like 10, 15 years ago, working in New York City, which is like work, hustle, grinds, like iBankers, working 24 hours around the clock and call it any time. Like, that was the cool thing to do. That was the, like, yes, I'm good and I'm proud and I'm doing the right thing, to now being like,
it's toxic.
Yeah, that it's such a toxic culture, to now on the flip side of where Jeff and I are, what we're talking about here at Beach Commute is the opposite of, like, the freer you are, the better. The more you can make in the less time you work, the better. And yes, still offer value. Yes, learn skills and provide and give value to a company, but have the freedom to be on a beach for 2 hours in the middle of the day to recharge your brain and do better work for the next 4 hours if you want to. So just shifting that. That's kind of how I took this question.
Yeah, celebrating burnout is not. Yeah. It goes against everything that we talked about in that Paul Millard's book, The Pathless Path. Yeah, and this idea of taking a look at, like, what your time actually means to you and how you're investing your energy and stuff. I remember thinking that was the way. It's just, you grind it, and that's how you measure your value, by how much you grind. That makes no sense. That is a cultural thing beaten into you, and we just need to unlearn that as much as possible. And so when I see these people say, oh yeah, we're going into the office, we're working hard, I'm like, oh, that is Jeff 10, 15 years ago. That is a bad mindset to be in, and you're missing it. You're totally missing it. That's not the point of all this kind of stuff. And yeah, even like you said, when you go into the office, I just looked it up again. It was the average 8-hour session. Somebody works 2 hours and 53 minutes a day. I might some days sit in front of my laptop and work a morning, say like 7 to 12, 5 hours, like almost twice as much as going into the office. I'm only working 5 hours, but
and then you have your whole afternoon to enjoy, and people judge you for that.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's, oh, you're being lazy. No, actually, I'm really efficient, and I'm able to do so because I'm in an environment that's really comfortable for me. There's no distractions. Yeah, I could wake up a little later, so I'm a little bit more fresh. All these things made that 5 hours possible, whereas all of those other contributing factors make only 3 hours possible in the office. So, yeah, measure output. Yeah. Don't measure attendance.
Yeah, stamp of approval. What's the word? mic drop. We're done.
Oh, seal. Yeah, done. Mic drop. Exactly.
So with that, I hope your takeaway from this is like remote work is possible. You're not being lazy. It's a new shift. Be ahead of the curve. Be free. Start. Take more vacation days, enjoy travels while you're working, and give a lot of value and do a good job. Yeah, with that, again, if you're not on our email list already, check out beachcommute.com/email so we can help you get that remote job so you can be free too. And if you're new to this podcast or you've been listening to a while and you haven't yet given a review, we'd love a 5-star. If you want to give a little comment, but even just the rating, whether it's, I forget, the subscribe on Spotify, the stars on either Apple, Spotify, anywhere you listen, it really, really helps other people find the podcast, and it helps us keep on going so that you can get more information like this. So with that, unless you got anything else, Jeff, we will be back next week.
Yep. See you next week.